What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Novichenko Whips YouTube channel. I wanted to do a quick video about tuning and revisions. I don't do too much remote tuning because I like to be there in person to see how the car is acting. But this car I tuned previously and the owner sent me a couple logs. I think there's just some pulls for third and fourth gear, maybe a little bit of fifth gear. And so with the change of weather, now that it's getting warmer outside, he said the car was acting up a little bit. We can take a quick look. There's plenty of data here. Usually, first off, I look at any kind of knock and feedback knock in the logs, and so we can see an instance happening here. The load for the engine was pretty low, 0.8. And if we scroll all the way to the right, it was just at around 1700 RPM. Could be phantom knock, just, happening for whatever reason. At this point, the fueling wasn't necessarily right where we want it, but again, could be during some kind of odd driving condition. Usually my go-to is check the map at this area where it's 0.8 load and around 1700 RPM. Let me go find that. And you can see I've already been editing this table. So for example, 0.8 is this column, 1700 RPM is around here. Around this spot in the map, it's a little bit jumpy with the timing. And I don't know, I think this is inherited from factory, but it's, I guess, not the greatest, because if you're coming from 1200 RPM to 1600, it's jumping from like 19 to 30 degrees, which is over a 10-degree diff. What I might do is slightly increase this, and it's interesting that I've noticed at times increasing timing will benefit the car in terms of knock, and the reason for that is that the car doesn't really like drastic transitions, and you want to smooth things out as much as possible, if that makes sense. They did happen around, so I know some of these values, there were pretty big diffs in them previously, and so we'll see what we can do. Let me go back. It's the only knock condition I saw in this pull. It's a little bit harder to read the boost pressure because it's using absolute, but let's see, this column V is for the throttle input. Let's see if there's a section where he gave us full throttle, and we can see, okay, so around here, full throttle from 3000 RPM. He was hitting around 29, which is about 15 psi of boost, right around 15. It's a little bit below the desired, but again, if we navigate now to the left, probably with the increased temps in general and everything going on, we see -2 on the feedback knock. -2 can sometimes be not ignored, but almost disregarded if you're going for a very aggressive tune. If you're seeing a little bit more than -2, then yeah, you should probably pay attention to what's going on there. For example, fueling wise, we were at 11.48, which is pretty good in terms of how rich we want it. We can see that the mixture is slowly getting enriched. And so the load there was 1.9, and our PM wise, we were at 3,600. 1.9, 3,600. Let's go back to our ignition table. 3,600 is this row. 1.9 is around right here. So I've already adjusted this table. I've actually pulled back a little timing in this area where you're kind of in boost. By the looks of it, usually I pull back like a half a degree or degree. It can help solve things. And then of course, if you see big dips and rises in the timing, you can always adjust for that. Make sure things are just as smooth as possible. Let's see if the 3D graph gives us any good idea. So as you might notice, when you're in very light load, that's where you have the more aggressive timing. And then as you come into boost, the timing definitely ramps down. And you want to make sure it's a fairly smooth map. It's probably a better description for map, because this is how your map for the ignition timing looks like. Let me continue on with looking at this some more. I've adjusted fueling as well in some of these places, so that's something that I've been bearing in mind. Overall, it just seems to be pulling 2 degrees across the rev range up to like 4,000 RPM, and the load increases to about 2.5 at one point. If I go back here, 2.5 is about to this point. And so, as I mentioned, I've already done this, but I've pulled back a little bit of timing. But you can do little iterations if you're tuning a car and want to pull back a bit, but not, let's say, considerably too much. In ECU Flash, the square bracket controls, I think, pull back like half a degree or less for the small adjustment. So you can play with that. Again, some people think, well, I'm going to pull back timing and lose power. Well, your car is cutting back timing on its own. You should be tuning for the most aggressive, safe sort of timing for your car, because you want your car happy and running smoothly, and then build up from there. Let me see what else I can find, and I'll catch you guys again. So I've gone through all the various pulls. The 4 log files, one of the worst that I noticed was at one point right over 2, calculated load of 2 and around 4,000 RPM. I saw even like a -6 in this log. Technically, the intake air temp was not too bad, 82 degrees. I just feel like I can do a little bit better to enrich in the mixture at that point in the map, and then also make sure that I pull the timing a little bit just for safety reasons. And so in the tune, you'll see that I've, especially in the band where you come into boost, which is kind of this diagonal section, I've made sure that by the time we hit 2 load that we're plenty rich. Again, I like to do smooth transitions. Very quick drop-offs and fueling are not the best, again, for how the car takes it. So if we look at my 3D graph, let me spin it a little bit. Overall, you can see that the more load you get, the fuel mixture goes rich, aka kind of how you see it ramp down. And then of course 11.5 is this bottom area, 14.7 is this area where you're doing most of your very light driving, and then of course as you ramp up the load, you go into the enriched mixture. So that looks pretty good. I made sure to cover the area where they're at around 2 load, which is calculated in grams per revolution, that we're already in either below the 12s for air fuel ratio, and then of course enrich as the RPM band continues to around 11.5. 11.5 is pretty rich, but it's a safe mixture for the Subarus. Some other manufacturers on full load, they run actually slightly leaner mixture at full boost and full load, I think like 12 or near 12, but on the Subarus you want to be under 12 for sure. You want to be like 11.5 to make sure your car is happy and safe. But yeah, happy tuning everybody. ECU Flash and your Tatrix cable, and making little adjustments here and there. It's a lot of fun, and you just make sure to log your car especially with larger changes in weather, to make sure she's still operating optimally. Take care.